Welcome everyone to the Pro Football Doc YouTube channel. I'm Thomas Casale with Pro Football Doc David Chao. Well, Doc, Urban Meyer can't go 5 minutes in Jacksonville without creating some kind of controversy. James Robinson, there's a lot of talk on why he was benched on Sunday. You know, Doc, listen, you do a great job analyzing the videos and giving us the injury information right away. But for me, this is my favorite part of what you do, is talking about your insider information on things like this that I find interesting. So I'm going to tee you up here on what happened, and then you let me know what's going on in Jacksonville, okay?
Okay. And by the way, before you tee me up, I think you misspoke slightly. I always say I deal in insider knowledge, not insider information. I know some people in Jacksonville, but I'm not calling them and saying, "What do you think of Urban Meyer? Give me the lowdown." I'm just looking at it from a organization, football, how things work perspective.
Right. I mean, and you have an idea on how things go there and who's in charge of what in terms of NFL teams from your experiences. So let's look at this. So James Robinson loses a fumble, okay? He doesn't receive a touch on the next four possessions. Carlos Hyde then loses a fumble. He was the one taking over for Robinson. And then James Robinson comes back in after Carlos Hyde loses the fumble. Now, there's some debate on whether or not there was injuries at play here. So Urban Meyer was asked after the game, what's going on, and why was Robinson in late in the game? To which Meyer said, and I find this interesting, you'd have to ask running backs coach Bernie Parmalee. I don't get too involved. I don't micromanage that. I know he's been dinged up, so I don't know if he's back in the tent or what's going on. But I do know that there's injury involved. But the interesting thing, Doc, before we get to your analysis, is that if he was injured, then 3 of his 8 carries in the game were in the final 2 minutes, with the Jaguars trailing 37-7. So that's, I think, what everyone's pointing to. What are you seeing here, and are you buying what Urban Meyer is selling?
I think, look, I'm not inside the building, but more often than not, where there's smoke, there's fire. It's not 100% of the time. And what you just talked about, boy, is so multifactorial. And I'll hope to remember to come back to it. There's accountability, there's leadership, there's hiding behind health. There's so many different ways to go with this. Let's start with the health angle, since this is Pro Football Doc. The health angle, I've been saying for a while that James Robinson should be able to play through. It's a heel injury. You don't play running back on your heels. You play it on the balls of your feet. And for some reason, the utilization hasn't been there. For me, to the eye test this Sunday, he looked good when he carried the ball. Yes, there was a fumble. To me, when Carlos Hyde got subbed in, he didn't look as dynamic. Now, I get a coach, whether running back or head coach, needs to figure out the deal. If ball security is their thing and you're going to sit a guy and send a message, I don't begrudge that. I don't love the answer. And even leading up to this week, I think there has been some hiding behind health. Look, college coaches, look, I respect Urban Meyer. I don't know him well personally. He's had a lot of success at the college level. But the NFL is a different game. In college, and we'll get to the accountability inside, but I don't know, Urban seems to fall in love with his college guys. I don't know, Travis Etienne at the top of the draft, he might be the 3-down back if he weren't injured. Carlos Hyde, his guy from Ohio State. For some reason, I just get the feeling there's some hiding behind health with James Robinson where he's not really his guy. And that happens all the time. That's not a criticism of Urban Meyer, right? That certain coaches want to bring in their guys. That happens. That's not just a college thing. But the NFL is different. One thing that I always observe about head coaches is there needs to be accountability. Even if it's true, even if it's 100% true that he has yielded the running back play to the running back coach in terms of the who gets what snaps. To say that at a press conference does not exude confidence that you're in charge or you're the leader. To me, a much better example is, yeah, that's just how we chose to play it. That's what's best for the team at the time. Those are all fine answers, but to say, I don't know, go ask that guy. Well, put that guy up there. Do you want, I mean, I would assume fans want, and media want, and owners want a head coach who knows what the rotation is and why, even if the decision was made by the running backs coach. To say, go ask him, I mean, I don't know. That's a little bit of deflection. And look, even if Urban Meyer wanted Carlos Hyde the rest of the game, and even if the running back coach went rogue and put in James Robinson, I would expect the head coach to handle that privately, not through the media, and say, go ask him. It's, that's an internal discussion that we have. That's fine. But this battle in the media or whatever, and my guess is you're going to talk next about James Robinson and his comments, but to me, it speaks to perhaps not the accountability that you're used to seeing, right? You're used to seeing NFL head coaches say, we didn't play well enough, we didn't coach well enough, it's my fault, even if it was just fumbles and turnovers, right? I mean, that's what you come to expect. And let me tell you, this NFL game is different. We talked about it on our podcast earlier. The comment from Vic Fangio that Urban Meyer said, wow, every team's like playing Alabama in the NFL. Yeah, it is. This is the NFL. There are no Division II patsies. I mean, this is the real deal. And even his comments from the off season, wow, this free agent process was kind of different than recruiting in college. Yeah, recruiting in college, he probably could walk in the room and say, Urban Meyer, and the kid's coming. This is different now. I mean, and the difference is also you're dealing with grown men. Now, college is getting better with transfer portals. It used to be you were kind of stuck, right? Mm-hmm. And look, we know university presidents are sometimes afraid of the head football coach, right? I mean, the head football coach makes more money and a lot of times, depending on school, has more power. There is no head football coach in the NFL that is more power than the owner, right? I mean, even Bill Belichick has to answer to Kraft, right? And it's just not, it's called accountability in terms of what it is and leadership. In college, look, maybe Urban, we're not getting back to the lap dance bar thing. Look, to me, it's not the poor judgment with the lap dance. It was the poor judgment to leave his team, in terms of being accountable and the leader. That was the poor judgment. The other stuff, it's his own private business, but I think in college you can get away with that when you're in a small college town. And this is the NFL, it's different. These guys are all independent minded and they won't necessarily say, yes, sir, coach, as I'm sure you're going to bring up for James Robinson next.
Yeah, I mean, listen, being a college coach beloved like Saban and Urban Meyer is way different than being in the NFL. You don't take nearly as much criticism. You run the entire state. It's completely different. And, I've said before, I interviewed Saban a couple times when he was with the Dolphins after a loss, but he was just miserable. He didn't like it. You could tell just by his reactions. And I feel like Urban Meyer's kind of in that same boat, but we'll see what happens there. James Robinson said, I'm not sure what the point of it was. He says he feels like he deserves to carry the load and get more carries from what he's done the past couple years. Yeah, it's interesting, Doc, because, we mentioned it's hard to argue the main point here of he got 3 of his 8 carries in the final 2 minutes of a blowout when the other guy wasn't hurt, obviously. So I think you're right. It's a little bit trying to hide behind health. But in terms of the James Robinson thing, I always say the players in the locker room know way before us. The players know who should be getting the carries there. Is this something in your experience or what you've seen that if you try to hide behind health, you can start to lose the team a little bit?
Absolutely. I mean, the players know the deal and the players talk. Look, it was the same as a team physician. If you screwed one guy, it would get around the locker room, right? If you weren't authentic to one guy and telling him the truth and what's happening, you'd lose your reputation. It's a very small, closed atmosphere in a team and in a locker room. And I agree with you. Look, I think they've already been hiding behind health there with Robinson and what have you. Look, any way you slice it, now that the player has, well, the coach did it first. Now the players in the media talking about it, they're now talking through the media instead of this sit down. This is what we're going to do. Look, that doesn't happen in New England. I mean, it doesn't happen on most teams.
Right.
And it's always an internal conversation. Norv Turner used to always, the media didn't love him, I don't think, but he was always very straight with the players, and they always really appreciated that. And I've often said, and this is a generic discussion, and it's not an anti-Urban Meyer thing, but to me, I've been through a lot of head coaches. Look, I was with the San Diego Chargers, and we had a lot of losing years for a while before we got Marty and then Norv and started to win, and Phillip and LT. I went through a lot of coaches. We went through back in the day from all the way back to Kevin Gilbride, to blanking on his name, June Jones, that came in, Mike Riley, a lot of different head coaches, and Bobby Ross was there in the very, very beginning. But look, Bobby Ross is very militant and very hard. Kevin Gilbride, when he coached with us, kind of took the Tom Coughlin school of very hard. Norv Turner, and maybe to a fault Mike Riley, were very nice players guys. I think in the NFL, you're dealing with grown men. And when you're dealing with grown men, and when you're around them a lot, they see through the BS. It's more about being authentic to yourself than it is to being a hard ass or a nice guy. Look, it's about consistent and consistency of message in terms of what it is. Mike Riley through and through was a nice guy, and maybe to a fault, loyal to his assistants to a fault. But the players really liked him and respected him. Marty Schottenheimer was a little harder, but the players respected him. Kevin Gilbride, I think, look, I'm not trying to say anything bad about him. I think he's a good football coach. I think he didn't find his coaching style. Was he Tom Coughlin or was he Kevin Gilbride? I think he was little Tom Coughlin, and then sometimes nice guy Kevin Gilbride, and the message got lost in there. I think Urban needs to find out who Urban is in the NFL and tell it to the guy straight. If you're benching a guy because you fumbled the ball, say, I'm benching you because I fumbled the ball, right? And if you're answering to the media saying, did you bench him because he fumbled or was it injuries? You could easily say, our roster, our play decisions, our play count decisions are an internal matter for our team. You don't need to throw out other things, I don't think, and talk about it in the media, but that's just my opinion.
All right, well, we'll see what happens this week, Doc. Make sure to go to sixscore.com, follow us on Twitter at ProFootballDoc, and make sure you come and check out all our videos all week. We'll have the updated six scores, everything, just so everyone knows. Titans, Jags this week. Titans at home, 9.5-point favorites, so we'll have to see if Jacksonville throws in the towel or if they're still fighting hard for Urban Meyer. Thanks as always, Doc.
Thank you.